Alright, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Anything Wrestling Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, once again, we got a triple threat. We got the whole crew back together. It is the Shant, the Commish, and Dan the Man. How you guys doing?
Great. I'm doing
Yep.
great. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm doing great. Thanks for having us back.
I think we got a little bit of a serious vibe going on in the air because we're here to talk about something that's a little sensitive to me, and I don't know how sensitive it is to you guys, but
I think personally we're gonna put this to rest after this.
I think we're going to come to an agreement and probably meet each other all in the middle to some extent. We are here to talk about the Undertaker's streak. We're here to talk about what it meant before it was broken. And yes, it has been broken. And if you have not seen it, you can go back and watch WrestleMania 30 on the WWE Network for only $9.99. We're going to be talking about the streak, how we feel about it, if it was the right call, if it was the wrong call, if we feel neutral about it. So before we begin, I just want to get a quick survey out there. I personally felt like the streak should have never been broken. Very quick, do you guys feel like it was the right call, the wrong call, or are we somewhere neutral?
I think given the right opponent, I don't think I would have had any problem with it being broken. I just don't think it was broken by the right person.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that being a big averse fan of all sports, there's always streaks that are meant to be broken and streaks that live on even way past our own time. And personally, as a WWE fan, I think this is one that should never have been broken, but if it was meant to be broken, maybe the wrong guy.
Maybe the wrong guy. Okay.
Maybe.
So you guys are basically kind of on the same page for this one.
I also think it was unfortunately unceremonious given how it happened, since from my understanding he got a concussion like a minute and a half into the match, and then he was just the entire time.
A lot of people say that night it wasn't The Undertaker, it was Mark Calaway, but we're going to get into all that. So I want everyone to pretend like we are in 2013. The streak has not been broken. It is still intact. Thank you. Special effects. So the streak started on March 24th, 1991 in Los Angeles, California in the LA Memorial Sports Arena at WrestleMania 7, The Undertaker versus Jimmy Snuka, a 4-minute and 20-second match. A lot of people felt like this match was probably the worst. It doesn't have a place on the list. Probably people should not talk about it, but I feel like it was the catalyst for what we know now as the streak. So as we get into it, we're going to talk about our top 3 favorite opponents, our top 3 worst opponents, and the streak at this point is still intact. We are still at 21-0. So personally to you guys, when someone says the Undertaker streak, what does that mean to you guys?
Well, for me, it was always one of the big matches to look forward to, because the Undertaker was one of the only true characters that the WWE was ever able to really create. And whether he was the Dead Man or the American Badass, he always brought it, and so you always looked forward to the match. So it was always a good one for me personally going into any WrestleMania I knew he was on the card for.
People would always say, who's in the Undertaker match? It almost had its own thing, like the Undertaker match, who's in it. So What about you, Commish, the streak? What did it mean to you?
Well, seeing that technically the streak started when I was 5 years old, and I couldn't really understand that much about wrestling at the time, it's always been the same feeling of like, oh, there's a WrestleMania coming, cool. Oh, WWE Championship match, yeah, whatever. Oh, tag team match. Oh, special elimination or I quit match, whatever. Oh my God, the Undertaker's in. Who's he facing this time? Who's his opponent? That's the one thing always that I think made me want to watch WrestleMania even more. Not that WrestleMania wasn't something to watch, but it just added that extra excitement going into it. And then, months before, like the build up to his match or just who he's facing or like just the whole event. Like, yeah, I can circle around like whoever was the champion at that time. Or even at one WrestleMania where it was meant for him to go into a championship match. And the streak's on the line as well. That says a lot at the same time. And that's why I think with the streak, you have a lot riding on it. You have a lot that went into it. You have something that Vince at one point, he didn't see it as a streak. He just saw it as like, oh, the Undertaker is winning matches at one of the best events throughout the year. Let's just see where it goes and how long we can keep it going.
I think it wasn't until Undertaker faced Ric Flair at WrestleMania where at the end of the match he does the putting his fingers up like I'm 10-0, and I think that's when it kind of became as, oh, he's got a streak at WrestleMania. And that's where slowly in, years after that, the streak versus whatever, a championship.
Like people started keeping count of it. Or
Yeah.
like at least making something of it that it's like it leads on to like, oh, the next year, the next year, and so on.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about our top 3 favorite opponents, and keep in mind we're still talking about when the streak was intact. We are at 21-0. So I want to go around the table right now, and I want to get your guys' take. Top 3 opponents and why. I want you guys to give me a solid reason why. It could have nothing to do with the performer. It could just be the match. It could just be because the stars aligned well for this match or whatnot. But tell me your top 3 opponents and why these guys are your top 3 opponents at Mania.
So I'll start. They're not in particular order.
Okay.
Because honestly, I think
It's a bit hard.
yeah,
to put
it
these
really
things in
is.
order,
But I'll start with the one that is a tie. It's and this is like in the bottom of the top 3 list. It's tied between the first time the Undertaker faced Kane, because we had the storyline that it's finally brother against brother. I'll never face him. I'll never have a match with him. And it's the other person it's tied with is with Ric Flair when the streak was actually like born.
Acknowledged.
Yeah. So as far as Kane goes, there was so much build-up like the year prior and going into WrestleMania about like, oh, am I ever going to really go one-on-one with my storyline brother? Am I ever going to do what I couldn't do? And then the introduction of like how Kane came out, it was still normal, but then like Undertaker always has something about coming in epically, and like you have the druids with like the torches holding it like for his pathway to come in. And I think what I liked the most about that match is that they sold it so well that it took the Undertaker all of his power to really beat him, because he didn't beat him with 1 tombstone, he beat him with 3. And I think the third one he even had to jump it just to like
a second after the 3 count. Kane kind of
yeah, he always nudged out. And yeah, like now as an adult you're like, okay, he's not gonna make it an easy match. But when you're watching it as a kid, my first reaction was like, someone kicked out of the tombstone. I didn't think that's possible. What the hell's going on?
Right. He did it again.
Yeah.
And again.
And it's like, what's it really gonna take for the Undertaker to win?
Right.
And then of course we see it. And then the whole reason why I tie it up with Ric Flair is because, okay, you have iconically one of the greatest golden era wrestlers still wrestling at the time. What can not be said about Ric Flair, obviously? It's the man. It's the limousine riding,
Jeff flying,
wheeling dealing,
son of a gun.
It's him. Woo! Thank you for that. But Ric Flair didn't go down easy. Obviously, for a man his age, he never goes down to a lot of opponents. And I think that was one of the years where, like, Ric Flair, like, almost could have died against most of his opponents.
It's funny you group these 2 matches together, because I think in both storylines with both Ric Flair and Kane, there was that family element. If I remember correctly, Undertaker was beating up Ric Flair's son, and was beating up Arn Anderson. So both of these matches had that family kind of aspect where the Undertaker or someone else is trying to get the Undertaker's attention, and there's that whole family element into it. So, I mean, for a second, now when I look back, I'm like, if I was watching live WrestleMania 17, I thought that when Arn Anderson came out, that would have been it. Like, Ric Flair would have won, but Undertaker kicks out and just throws Ric Flair out of the ring. So. So before you read us the next 2, Dan, I want to get your top 3, one of your top 3 first. So let's go with that.
So I'll start with my. I'll start from my number 3. I have Taker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26.
Was that
streak versus
the second one?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing where Shawn always brought it, and so did Taker. And you had the one the year before, you had the drama of Shawn lost. He's like, I need to prove that I can do this. And they build to it, and then it just wasn't in the cards. But man, did they go out there and perform. I felt so bad for Sean's knee when he did the moonsault onto the table. Oh, God.
You could just see, like, the reaction. Like, he was trying to hide so bad, but it's like, that was your knee, bro.
But, no, I love those two, and it was a hell of a match.
Do you think with that match, like, you had two of the biggest, like, personalities in WrestleMania history going at it? Not just for streak and career, but just, like, you know who Undertaker is in WrestleMania. But then you have, as he's been labeled, Mr. WrestleMania, the icon, you know? Do you think that has, like, a lot of, like, great epicness to it?
Yeah, I think it adds a lot of clout to the match. It gives it sort of that summer blockbuster kind of thing, even though we're in April or March. But, yeah, I think as far as what WWE has, that's their season finale. So,
and what a way to go
can't
out.
do much better than that.
What did you think of it, like, when you saw that match? Like, the rematch, obviously.
The WrestleMania 26. I think, oh man, I can remember, the Royal Rumble of that year where Shawn was the guy that you wanted to win that Rumble because he wants to go on to face Taker, and Batista gets all that heat where he throws him out. And what made it is when Shawn, he kind of has this moment where he gets back in the ring and the ref goes, "You're out, get out of here, what are you doing?" And he just kicks the referee's head off, and there's a moment where he's going down the ramp and he's like, "God, no!" And you feel that, you're like, my God, the guy's broken, But then he screws the Taker at Elimination Chamber. Jericho gets the title. Here we go. And the fact that Triple H goes, "Shawn, like, you're losing it. Stop. You are obsessing over this."
I just kicked Stan!
That was controversial, though. The fact that he
Why
comes back in.
did you kick Stan?
I think he had to.
He's gonna sue me now. That's copyright
That
infringement
is
of his
gimmick infringement.
But no, I mean, I think the story for WWE in 2010 being far away from the Attitude Era and in the PG era, I think that was one of the best builds to a WrestleMania match. And the whole element of Triple H saying, "You got to stop, you got to calm down." Shawn was at another level in that storyline. I truly believe.
I think that was the best that we've seen of Shawn Michaels at that point, because honestly, he was at a point kind of past his prime where it's like, where else can we go with you? We're not doing DX anymore.
Yeah.
Well, they were, but
kind of not as much as
it wasn't
before.
what it used to be.
And it's like, we don't have much story left for you, and how much longer can you go as a wrestler yourself? Because keep in mind, even though this match was the greatest thing ever, these two have been in wrestling for almost the exact same amount of time in their careers, and it's like
They were both on the first Raw.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had my first match in 1927.
plus 30 years. But like, I think too, to add to that, like with Shawn, it's just like you have what I think was worked out perfectly story-wise.
yes.
But let's just rewrite the story history. Let's say Shawn wins the Rumble. Let's say Undertaker still keeps the title at Elimination Chamber. Do you think that this match, now adding the championship belt, would have added a lot more to it, or taken out the luster in it?
I think it would have been a crapshoot, because I think it would have been too much. I think it would have been too much shoehorned into one feud.
Okay.
But would it have added like a secondary motivation for Shawn Michaels? Like, well, not only do I not want to retire, I want that belt one last time. Mm. Sure, but I think it's fine the way that it was.
I kind of go back and forth with that. I think that Shawn would say, I want one last hurrah, with the belt. But this is one of those matches where even if there is no belt, you can still tune in and you can still be interested. I mean, I'm probably gonna get knocked for this, but I look at the Brock Lesnar and Goldberg match from last year's WrestleMania. I truly believe if the title was not there, I would still be okay with it, because the storyline here was, can Brock Lesnar beat Goldberg? That's what we wanted to see. And it started one of the longest Universal title reigns, which it helps when you're not there like 3/4 out of the year. But it was one of those things where I'm like, if the title was not there, I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna say, as we're talking about Shawn Michaels, I think I'm probably going from 1, 2, 3 here. First favorite WrestleMania opponent would be Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25, Houston, Texas. You know, a 30-minute classic. Going back to your point where you said it was at a time where when Undertaker would hit a tombstone, that was it. I think from WrestleMania 15 to 24, it was just one tombstone and that's it. You were done.
That was what you built the whole match to. Was that
tombstone? But Shawn Michaels broke a streak in his own where he broke that. Undertaker hits him with a tombstone. He kicks out. And then, you know, as he goes for a moonsault, Undertaker catches him again, and that's what does it. But I think that's what kind of helped was give it that 5-star moniker was these guys have to exhaust everything. And JR on commentary, oh man, it was like the Attitude Era all over again. So now, Commish, second favorite WrestleMania opponent from The Undertaker.
I think because I see your notes of where your number 2 is.
No peeking.
No, I already saw it. You can't help it. But it coincides with mine, and it's against Triple H. Not the first time, not the third time, but the second time
The
they
second
faced each
time. Okay, this is where we got a difference in opinion.
So, don't get me wrong. The last time they faced each other was also a classic match.
Beautiful.
It was amazing. But the reason why I like the second time the go around between them is because, one, rarely do you see The Undertaker ever make someone submit or have a submission move, even though he does. And he's done it before to, I think, Edge in the streak.
That was it.
And with this match in particular, I like it because, one, he did make Triple H submit, but he wasn't the one who walked out, even though he won.
Yeah.
Triple H got up like nothing, like, I lost, but I'm still walking away like if I won, even though on paper it's the other way around. And then that kind of builds to something for next year.
Yeah,
but at the same time, you see something that no one has ever seen from The Undertaker. You see him show weakness.
Being fragile.
And there's nothing wrong with that, especially for a man who's had a career like The Undertaker, who's been in this so long, and it's like, is this the beginning of the end? Are we going to see the streak end shortly? Obviously we didn't, but I like this match because it's no holds barred. They damn near kill each other.
They got fined too, by the way.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And even though you get the outcome that is supposed to happen, you still see the other person walk out like if he was fine. Even though he just...
Didn't they kind of do the reverse build of the HBK thing on this one, where then the next year the Undertaker was like, I need to prove that I'm not broken?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that you see throughout the year the Undertaker going through this whole metamorphosis of, like, not from, like, Dead Man back to American Badass, but more, like, from Dead Man to, like, a demon to, like, even just the catalyst of who the Undertaker has been for so long. Yeah.
Johnny Cash.
Oh, wow. That.
Dan's second favorite Undertaker opponent.
I got Randy at 21.
Ooh.
That one, yep.
Ooh.
That one was something.
There was a lot to that.
Yeah, I liked that feud. And if I can speak frankly, I think
If I can be serious one.
if anyone should have ended the streak before it ended, I'd have been okay with this one, because I think Randy at the time was a good choice, because then that would have propelled him. Where we are with Randy now, I'm kind of like, maybe that would have been a bad idea, but
To do it now, yeah.
Originally, there's rumblings that Randy was like, we need you to break the streak, and he said, I'm not going to do it.
So, okay, knowing that you know that, Sean, would you have been okay if it was Randy?
No.
You'll never be okay with anyone breaking it.
We're going to get to this later,
Okay.
but to me, it's the streak should still be intact.
Okay, so even if we obviously know the outcome, do you think Randy gave the Undertaker a good challenge though?
Oh yes, that's and I think the whole element of Cowboy Bob Orton kind of coming back, and that's one of those moments where you're like, for a second I thought it was over, because when you see that match, it's the 1-2, and the ref he's almost there, and the Undertaker just barely kicks
He's like
out.
centimeters away from
Yeah.
that.
the chokeslam into the RKO, and then Orton kind of teasing the tombstone. He
and
picks
then
him
they fold
up and
backwards.
pull back. So Randy does give the Undertaker a challenge, no doubt. My second favorite match, I'm a year apart from you, is Triple H at WrestleMania 28. Miami, Florida, 2012. It's a 30-minute classic Hell in a Cell match.
With special guest referee
Shawn Michaels, which you can see on the WWE Network for a reasonable price, not negotiable, but reasonable price
of $9.99.
Gimmick infringement.
You guys have done it to each other, so I think counter lawsuits don't count no more.
Yeah.
We're building our own classic match here where we
Yeah.
steal each other's
Dan,
finishes.
WrestleMania 35.
It's on.
I'll see you there.
But going back to your WrestleMania or your Undertaker match,
I will just throw this in there. So classic 5-star match. They had everything. The whole element of HBK. Being the special ref, getting knocked out. You get another referee in. Jim Ross comes back to commentate. But I feel like, knowing what we know now about the streak, this should have been the Undertaker's very last match, because you have it in Hell in a Cell against Triple H, with Shawn Michaels as referee, and the Undertaker, he takes a super kick, 2 pedigrees, takes a beating with the sledgehammer, gets thrown on the stairs. So we see Undertaker in his full form, where the guy just will not stay down.
and with a new haircut, by the way. I liked it. I liked the look.
I can get used to it, but to me, this match had everything. It's an Attitude Era match, not in the Attitude Era. So that's my second pick.
So to add to that, the thing I liked about that is there's history in that match.
Mm-hmm.
You have the 2 men who started the Hell in a Cell match, even though he's not wrestling in it.
Yeah.
In that match, you have someone who I think has developed a streak of his own in Hell in a Cell matches and has a violent history in them with Triple H.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the story of that was just as big, because these are 3 men that all respect each other. Even though the Undertaker and Triple H went in like, I hate you. But you have Shawn going in there like, damn it, I don't know what to do. I want to make the right call. But then again, I don't. Because I have something left.
I couldn't do it. Do I want my best friend to do what I couldn't do?
Yeah.
Triple H even brings that up in a promo. He's like, everyone needs to realize this is not about Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels needs to put his ego aside. And the Undertaker even teased that he's like, will you be able to do what your buddy couldn't do back there? And so this whole time, the Undertaker starts taking those little jabs at Triple H. But I think the build to this one was great, where Triple H was like, I know what I need to do, but I'm not going to do it. And he goes out defyingly, giving him, the crotch chop. And Undertaker, showing that he has a nasty side too, rears back on that sledgehammer and just gives him one more. And the best part, when Shawn Michaels turns around, the whole thing, the whole story here for me just fits perfectly.
But the thing too, and then I'll move on to my final pick, for the number 1. What I like is, and he did this to Shawn as well. He told him to stay down.
Stay down.
Like, at that point, I don't care if you're breaking kayfabe. I don't care if you're like adding on or not adding on to the story. It's literally a man telling his opponent, you want this to end the right way, or do you want me to end it my way? And obviously, Shawn and Triple H being the way they are, it's like, you'll do it your way, but I'm still getting a glory moment out of your moment.
Did Undertaker tell him to stay down in this match? Because I know Triple H tells him, Shawn, tell him to quit, ring the bell, stop the match. But does Undertaker tell him to stay down?
I think he tells him to quit. I'm mixing up mine with Shawn.
Okay.
Because he told Shawn to stay down.
He told Shawn to stay down, yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, third.
To my number 1, I think it's a number 1 just because, again, this goes back to an earlier podcast we did. It was WrestleMania 12 when he went up against, back then, he was known as Diesel, but forever it'll be Kevin Nash.
Nice guy.
I've met him. He is a nice guy, yes.
I personally love that match because it's like, this was a dream match I've wanted to see forever as a kid. Like, 2 7-foot tall monsters going at each other. And a lot of people back then thought, oh, they can't wrestle. They're just 2 big guys. They're just going to hit each other with power moves and all that. But no, Kevin Nash sold the match very well. He was very, wrestling-esque. Something that you rarely see Kevin Nash do. And at the same time, this was the days of the Click era, obviously. And Nash could have ended the streak that early before it even became
Yeah.
known as a streak. But he knew that Undertaker had to get a push. It wasn't like his big push towards the following year, but it was something.
I think no matter what era you were in, there's always been that respect for Taker. Because I know, like I said, Randy was offered, Mark Henry was offered, everyone was offered to break the streak, but no one wanted to do it. Now, we'll get to when it broke, but there's a story behind that. But, Dan, your third.
My third has some sentimental value to me, which is why it's up there. And beside the fact that it was still a solid match. I chose Undertaker versus Batista at 23.
Okay.
Because I was present for that
And
one.
you were there?
Everyone has the one attachment. Nice.
I'll tell you what, Dan, if you want to see it again, you can on the WWE Network for only
$9.99. I need to get into this lawsuit.
Apparently we're going triple threat match at 35.
No DQ.
No holds barred.
But no, 23, aside from having been there, is one of my favorite WrestleManias. Sans the Battle of the Billionaires.
Oh man, was that the one?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different world now, and for whatever reason, we're not going to get into that.
Back when Bobby Lashley, why weren't you wearing a headband?
Did you need a headband?
No. So, the reason I liked this pay-per-view as a whole was you had Shawn and Cena, they'd done the tag team title thing, then they split apart, and you had that feud, and that was pretty solid. And you had Taker versus Batista, with Taker going in as the challenger.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I am blanking on how the match actually ended.
Does it choke?
Because now we've talked about submissions, we've talked about the tombstone choke slams, and I think
Batista does a Batista bomb. Taker kicks
I
out.
feel like this one was a tombstone also, but
Tries
I
to
don't
do a
remember.
power slam. Taker pushes him into the turnbuckle, picks him up. Tombstones 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's right. And so just being there and watching this, it rings home to me. So I like this one.
So not only are you in your hometown where you're from,
Mm-hmm.
not only are you live at one of the biggest events ever, but you got to see history. You can actually say out of the three of us, you're a part of WWE history.
For a second, I was going to ask, did you get burned? Because the next year, when Undertaker's pyro went off and all those people got burned, I mixed it up with 20. I'm like, Dan, did you get burned in that one?
No, I didn't spend that much money on my tickets.
I'm sure it wasn't burning in your light.
Wow.
We're not getting any views, I swear. My favorite was CM Punk at WrestleMania 29 in New Jersey. This is 2013. It's a 22-minute match. Very controversial because we had the whole Paul Bearer element where people thought you are disgracing someone who has just passed away.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the ashes, but I think Punk, of course, this is after the pipe bomb, after that long reign that he had. And The Undertaker, it's like, who can we give The Undertaker this year? And CM Punk was a guy right there. I will say that if I could change one thing about this match, I think it should have gone last.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think The Rock and Cena, we had seen the previous year. It's like, okay, it's for the title. It's twice in a lifetime. But I think The Undertaker match, had it main evented, would have been so much more because Punk would have gotten his wish as being on the last match at WrestleMania. Undertaker finally brings prestige to Paul Bearer's name. He's victorious.
Even though he still does.
He does, yeah, but I think just a lot of people took exception to, why are we bringing someone who's dead and throwing their name into a storyline? But I thought that it helped Punk develop that little edgy side of his persona where it's like you need that for an Undertaker WrestleMania match. You need that for the build. And with Paul Heyman at ringside, tossing him the urn and he hits him and you think it's over, but it's not. So I thought this aligned. This was great.
I was just gonna say I don't have any problem with them bringing Paul Bearer into it because he's a necessary element of the Undertaker mythology. They didn't go out there and refer to him as William Moody or Percy Pringle. They retained that he was Paul Bearer, who unfortunately, the person who portrayed the character was no longer with us. But I don't have an issue with it.
Am I the only one who, for a second, when Paul Heyman came out when he was dressed like Paul Bearer, for like that first 2 seconds, I'm like, is that Paul Bearer? Because for a second it looks like Paul Bearer, and I'm like, oh, Heyman, you bastard.
They preserved him in the concrete.
I think my understanding of that match will always be that CM Punk at the time was the guy who had a lot to prove to the WWE, not to himself, because he's proven it throughout his career in ROH, and then in WWE. Even now, as he's doing not as great in UFC, but still he still has a career. The thing with Punk is, it was the right place, right time, right opponent, and I think it would have been disgraceful if they gave him the option to end it. Personally, to me. Because, honestly, I think with him losing, it added to everything he's been building up himself. As far as, like, I'm supposed to be the guy. I'm supposed to be the WrestleMania guy. The main eventer, no matter what.
World.
Yeah. But the fact that he loses, it's like, no, you're still going to be seen as one of the many on the list that has lost, but you are now in history.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, we see later on what that built up with Punk, like the more animosity he's had towards McMahon, towards the WWE, and why he's done what he's done with his career. Which, again, this is a good thing that he didn't break it, personally, to me.
Yeah. So, from the best in the world, we now go to the worst. So we got a list here. Our top 3 worst opponents at WrestleMania. I will start this list off, and I'll just breeze through them, one by one. First one is Giant Gonzalez.
Oh my goodness, it's unanimous. That's your number one? Is that your number one, Dan?
I'm split between that one.
It's in there, though,
They
right?
threw their hands up, by the way.
Okay, so that's my number one as well. Let's just start with that one. Why is that your worst? And we'll go along the table.
Okay, so Giant Gonzalez, WrestleMania 9 in Las Vegas. This is 1993. It's a 7-minute and 30-second match.
Worst 7 minutes of my life.
I don't even think this is going to be the only one we have in common. Continue.
Okay, we'll see if we can get our own streak going here. First of all, the match ends in a DQ. I thought that this is, when you look back at the pinfalls, the submissions, the classic matches, you're like, okay, DQ. How does that happen? And the whole match was just, it's the Kane uppercut, but like the bad version, because Giant Gonzalez is just flopping all over the ring. You got the 3 clotheslines, which he finally goes down. Then he gets what's that chemical? Chloroform, and just smears it all over the Undertaker's face. He fades, goes back, comes back out, gets a couple punches in. It was just, I think WrestleMania 9 as an event was just...
Well, let's go from the historical standpoint of the WrestleManias. It's the first I don't think the first, but one of many outdoor WrestleManias. It's the first time, I think, ever there's a WrestleMania in Vegas.
Yeah.
The whole card in itself was decent. This was just like a gimme match. Personally, to me, you could have not had this match. You could have just given The Undertaker a match at WrestleMania 10 the following year. But obviously, we were going in storyline the year later where he wasn't in that WrestleMania match. But I just hate this match so goddamn much because...
Let me jump in with one thought, because I've got a question for Giant Gonzalez. Why are you wearing a bodysuit?
A huge bodysuit.
If you guys want to
it looks like it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Mind you.
And it's not even color matched to like his actual skin.
If you guys want to see this suit along with this horrendous 7-minute
Where
match,
can we find it, Shant?
You can find it on the WWE Network.
How much does it cost?
It's a non-negotiable but reasonable price of only $9.99.
$9.99?
$9.99, not a grand.
So
Yeah.
$9.99.
$9.99, not $10.
Not $9.98.
No, $9.99. But okay, I think
it's a crapshoot. Am I wrong? Like the God,
well,
I hate this.
Okay,
match.
let's see if we can keep this going. Second, not that he's.
I peaked. I know you and I have one more in common.
But the thing is, with these 2 matches, my worst, they're after the streak. That's the problem. Because honestly, I looked at the whole list before he loses.
Yeah.
they're all great matches except Giant Gonzalez.
Yeah.
They're all good
They're all
matches.
Let me
all
see if I
passable
can make
matches.
you think for a second, because another
All
one
right.
that I have here
Oh,
is
yeah.
Psycho Sid at WrestleMania 13 in Chicago, Illinois. This is 1997, a 21-minute match. Psycho Sid, I don't have a problem with the guy. He's not a bad wrestler. I like him. He's great.
Wait. First of all, who's the man? Who's the man?
Am I not getting something here?
That's his gimmick. Oh my god.
I'm sorry, I only have half the brain that he does.
No, you have more of a brain than he does. Why do you not like that match?
First of all, he was aided by Bret Hart to win the match.
The Undertaker.
The Undertaker was aided, where Psycho Sid gets
see it that way.
Bret Hart does the stun gun. What is it called? Where he hangs him up over the rope.
Yeah.
Psycho Sid turns around, tombstone. The whole match was just kind of meh. I didn't really see.
So do you felt like they were just giving the Undertaker the belt?
Not that
for
they
the
were
second
giving,
time?
but I feel like the match could have been a little bit more.
So here's the thing: a lot of people like to confuse that with being the Undertaker winning the WWF, as it was known back then, the WWF Championship for the first time. When really, in history of his career, it's not.
It's not.
And that's what I hate, that most people can't get that moment of his right, because that's the second time he wins it. What I still think that, to me, it's a good match along the undefeated streak, just because the whole story. There was such a great story to that with Bret, with Undertaker, with Sid, and even with Austin.
And Shawn Michaels, who was at ringside calling the match.
Which made it even better to me, because at the time, I was still in my phase of only liking faces, and Shawn was a face at the moment, but he was slowly building his way into becoming
the heel.
why I think one of the greatest heels ever. At that time of the Attitude Era. At the birth of the Attitude Era.
Dan,
What?
What do you have to contribute to his...
What do you think of this?
Because that's his second
this
worst.
one?
Yeah.
I'm kind of on your side, where I don't have a huge problem with this one. Even the interference isn't that big of a deal for me. Because I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where it's not a factor in the long run.
They make Bret look like a punk.
Yeah.
Which was great at the time, because he was turning to a heel.
No, actually, he was already healed.
Yeah,
because
at that
the
event,
submission match happened like 2 matches prior to this. So,
But the thing is about that, like, it was a bad start for him as a heel. And with Bret, it's like he always does everything so perfectly. Because remember, he's supposed to be the excellence of execution.
I just
He
feel
didn't
like
execute that very well.
I feel like the Undertaker. To me, it's like he needs to do everything on his own at WrestleMania. If he's aided, or if he's disqualified, or if his opponent is disqualified, I just feel like it brings down the whole moniker. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, that did happen, but you want to remember something else, like the Hell in a Cell match or the matches that he had with HBK.
Okay.
Speaking of Hell in a Cell, my third worst opponent for Taker is the Big Boss Man at WrestleMania 15, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is 1999, and it's a 9-minute match.
So, that was almost going to be on my top 3 worst matches.
That didn't make the list?
No, it doesn't.
You just made the list.
And you're going to be on another list as well. But I was narrow on this match just because we were seeing an Undertaker at the moment that the story was just so bad. Like the whole corporate ministry versus the ministry versus the corporate ministry falling apart, weeding out the weak people in it. It was just such a bad storyline. But to me, like, the thing that, like, I think why I was okay with the match was because of how it ended. Like, he wins the match, of course. But do you ever really see something as controversial like that happen?
But the problem is, we're not remembering the match. We are remembering something that happened after the match.
But it's still a part of the match, no matter what, though. Because it's still something that The Undertaker does to an opponent.
What do you think, Dan?
I think I'm going to side with Shant on this one.
Ah.
2-on-1.
Just sort of a hollow match in the tapestry of Undertaker history.
Okay.
So, Commish, give us your top 3 worst opponents.
Well,
I mean, we got Giant
Yeah,
Gonzalez.
we're all in agreement to that. So
So,
these 2 opponents are in here after the streak, unfortunately.
Do you mind if we come back when we're
Yeah,
talking?
that's fine.
Okay, let's come back to you, Dan.
We have the exact same.
Okay. then let's.
You told us your 3, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my.
So
three.
I think we can go on with the rest.
Yeah,
of the episode.
because we gave our opinions on those also.
Yeah.
So,
So I think it counts.
Okay. So now the infamous moment where the streak gets broken. So
Who
the
breaks it?
Streak ended on April 6, 2014 in New Orleans, Louisiana in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. This is WrestleMania 30, Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, a 29-minute match. And let me just say this. So I was watching live when it happened, and I am literally just laying down with the laptop just on my belly. And it's one of those things where it's like, you would always go into these Undertaker matches saying they can try to stir it up, but Undertaker, he's winning at Mania. It's a given. And third at 5, 1, 2, 3. And I just take the laptop off my belly and I put it on the floor. I'm like, what? And for a
the same
second,
reaction as Brock Lesnar guy.
well,
I think that's wrong meme. I think that's the other guy, but
You mean the guy in the audience with the bugged out eyes?
yeah.
At first I'm like, wait a second, they're pulling something here. They're probably gonna pull a CM Punk versus Rock thing where they're gonna let this moment freeze in, but then they're gonna say, oh, the ref made a wrong call, or there was a rope break, or something. There has to be something here.
It still would have cheapened it a little bit, but
It would have, but I think it would have been one of those moments where it's like, okay, the referee's going to reverse the decision and we're going to go back to, restarting the match. Brock Lesnar's music hits, he gets out of the ring, and he's walking out, and I'm like, and you see the graphic, 21-1? What?
He's not pulling an Austin right now.
I am not pulling an Austin, no. I was shocked. I didn't know what to think. I'm like, was Undertaker supposed to win, but they just screwed it up and they just went with it, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe my eyes.
What was your first reaction, Dan?
so I don't remember if I was watching or if I found out after the fact. I think I might have been working that day, and I found out. I took my phone out and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, WrestleMania. I'm gonna check the results, and I scrolled past and saw Brock Lesnar defeats The Undertaker, and I was kind of the same. I was like, what the hell did they just do? What have they done? And
Why?
Why did Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker?
There it is.
And so, yeah, I was in the same general train of thought, and as we discussed earlier, I'm not a fan. I'm not a particular fan of this being how it ended.
Okay.
I get why they did it, because they were en route to building Brock to be the undefeatable monster for the next 17 years or however long it's been at this point.
bad.
What about you, Commish?
Okay.
What was your initial reaction?
So at the time, I was seeing the direction the WWE was going in the era that I was in. I wasn't as a big a fan at one point. I was my loyalty to the WWE was fading away, but I still kept myself adverse to everything that's happened, especially main events. And something about this one, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find out what happened, because I think I was at work as well.
You guys chose work over WrestleMania?
And bills, man.
Yeah. Money.
Obviously, we're different now. We're woken.
So,
But let me get to my point.
Was the network even up at that point?
yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. But
Wow.
the thing about the network, it wasn't like as like advertised at first.
Yeah.
Not like as it is now.
For only $9.99.
Well, I didn't have the $9.99 to spare, so
Yeah, same here. But,
Really?
But here's my thing. I was like, okay, I need to know what happened at WrestleMania this year. I need to know. I'm scrolling. I'm like, okay, this person won. This person lost. This person won. What is this? Brock Lesnar defeats. Oh, who did he face? And I think my phone was still loading. It said, oh, Brock Lesnar defeats What? I couldn't finish it saying that. I'm like, I think I was like you, where and you, Dan, where I was just like, no, what? No, this is bullshit. So I think I went onto a computer in the computer department where I used to work at. I looked it up to make sure my phone was full of shit, and I'm like, no way, this is not life. This is not the reality I'm living in right now. So as I went home, I kept Googling it, kept trying to find YouTube videos of whoever like recorded it, and then when I was able to see it, I'm like, oh my god, the streak is over. And I was kind of disgusted at first. I'm like, out of all wrestlers,
Yeah.
why Brock Lesnar? You know? But at the same time, I'm just like, okay.
And you can feel the air sucked out of that arena.
I think one of the comments, I think it's Michael Cole's like, or it's Jerry's like, you can feel like the wind in New Orleans has just been like sucked out of the stadium.
And I think like
It's because when you have 100,000 people all gasp at the same time.
The funny thing is, the famous the guy with the beady eyeballs, you know, he was actually cheering for Brock. He's like, I was cheering for Brock, but it's one of the things where it's like, when it happens, you're like, yeah, I was cheering for Brock. But
I want Brock to win, but I didn't expect it to happen.
But it wasn't supposed to happen.
that's kind of like with every fan of any sport. Like when their favorite sports team like wins something you would never think they're able to winning, and just like, what?
Be like the
Just
Cleveland
that.
Browns winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's never gonna happen though.
Um,
But yeah, like I can feel what that guy felt, because at the same time, well, not really, because I wasn't a fan of Brock's, but at the same time, if I was a Brock Lesnar fan, I would have had the same reaction. Like, there's no way my favorite wrestler just beat the Undertaker.
right.
That's like something like you can't really say.
So before we get into post streak and all that, and
We still have to finish the worst too with us.
that's right. So okay, let's address that. So before we get into that, so it's been 4 years now since the streak has been broken.
Okay.
I want to know where you guys stand, and now that we know WrestleMania 30 happened, and now 4 years down the line, do you guys think this is the right call? Should we have waited? Should it have happened earlier? Should we just have had Undertaker retired when the streak was intact? I said it before, I'll say it again. And this is where you and I are probably going to go at it. To me, The Undertaker should have never lost at WrestleMania. The Undertaker was once in a lifetime. The streak was once in a lifetime. And I felt like every good superstar needs to have that one accomplishment where people think about it. They say, oh, that was The Undertaker. And when that was taken away, I said, why would you do that? Why would you take that away? Yeah, I know we would tease it every single time. I can remember Dan back in 2007 when he was facing Batista. Batista's never lost the world title, but Undertaker never lost at WrestleMania. Who's going to win? You know, and the same thing with HBK. Like, he gave Undertaker a 5-star match. If they wrestle again, he might beat him again. You know, same thing with Triple H. You know, I know what I have to do to finish you. Same thing with CM Punk. Like, he's rising up there. Could he break the streak? So every year there was this teaser. But I think almost deep down you're like, nah, they're not going to break the streak. Because why would you? It's The Undertaker.
No.
To me, you guys always ask, what if it was this? What if it was this opponent? What if it was, so and so?
Andrade Cien Almas.
He had a 5-star match, so I won't laugh that off. But
On the opening show.
but to me, it was just the fact that the streak should have never been broken. To me, that was Undertaker. And if you had any intention of breaking it at WrestleMania 28, when he was a perfect 20-0, end of an era, the Undertaker has retired. That's it. 20-0, done with it. Opinions? What do you guys think? Where are we?
You want to go first on this?
Sure. Looking back at everybody he's faced, like I said, back when he fought Randy, that could have been a good time to give it to somebody who you wanted to actually establish. Looking back at everybody else he's faced, including the post streak opponents, while I would have liked to have seen some of those matches, like I was excited about the idea of Undertaker and Bray facing each other, because having those two characters come together was compelling. But looking back at all of them, it's like, nah, I don't think any of these guys should have been the one to break it.
Well, this leads into our worst two, which we can finish the worst three opponents.
Go for it. Let's go. Let's do it.
This is what I was going to lead into. Because, okay, who are his next four opponents? In order, since
After
I think...
Brock?
Yeah.
It was Bray Wyatt,
Okay.
Shane, Roman Reigns, John Cena.
Okay, Bray Wyatt, 21-1, right? No, 22-1 at that point. This was a match I was looking forward to, but because of what happened, I think, to Bray,
Yeah.
couldn't really get the match he wanted. Fine, cool. Let's just have him win it. Okay, no problem. The following year with Shane McMahon. It was a decent, if not bad, match, especially with the fact that, you know, Shane has something to prove to his dad, and it was a bad story.
But they completely reversed it the night after. I
Because
understand.
it was you have to beat him in order to
run, and then Vince is like, okay, let's see what you got. Run Raw.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, with this match, I just thought, like, you couldn't really make it a 5-star. You barely made it a 3-star. If you didn't throw yourself off the cage, it would have been a 1-star match for me. This would be a throwaway Undertaker match. So finally, with these last two opponents, these are my worst.
Let's hear it.
They're also my worst.
Roman Reigns,
Yep.
WrestleMania 33, and John Cena, WrestleMania 34. I will tell you why, and it goes in this order.
Okay.
Starting with Roman Reigns.
Okay.
I hate Roman Reigns. Everyone on this podcast knows it. Everyone that's listened to our prior episodes knows this. I did not like the outcome of that match at all. It was by far like his worst opponent. I still don't like the story, and I don't like that he gives himself the title of being the biggest, the new badass dog in the yard. No, you cannot take something that belongs to the Undertaker and make it your own
It's
thing.
out of character for Reigns.
Exactly.
Be honest with me when I ask this. Did you only hate the match just because it's Roman Reigns in there?
No, I hated the match because of the fact that it was the Undertaker having this match and having to turn his streak from a loss of 1 to 2 now. Just leave it with 1 loss, not 2. Seriously.
I think Roman would have gotten just as much, if not more, of a rub just being in the match.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he'd lost, I think it would have done just as much for him as beating the Undertaker did, considering he wasn't the 1. He was now the 2. And I think part of that was they were trying to kind of draw a parallel between Roman and Brock, which has been this...
That's the thing I've hated too.
Overarching storyline for the last...
year and a half now.
Yeah.
That's why it also bugs me as well. Because the following year, you have the 2 men in New Orleans that have now beaten The Undertaker give you the worst main event I have ever seen in WrestleMania history. And then, which leads into WrestleMania 34 before that worst match, half of the matches into it beforehand. You have a pair of jorts waiting in the audience.
Dan.
Go ahead.
Why are you wearing those jorts?
Actually, he wasn't wearing them, now that I remember. But either way, you know who we're talking about.
He ended up wearing jorts. It's
Yeah.
fine. Still works.
But the thing is, John Cena had been building up for months like, oh, I want a match with you. I know I can beat you.
People said it would never happen.
Exactly. And he kept monitoring The Undertaker. He kept mocking him. And to me, it's like, what do you need to prove? You have nothing left to prove in the WWE to me. You're already an established superstar. You're already trying to become The Rock 2.0 in Hollywood, even though it's going to take you a few more years. But you're having a decent career in Hollywood, no problem.
it's all right. He just needs to star in the Scorpion King 7.
Seriously.
Not before he stars in Marine 10.
Oh, God.
Yeah, man, that's the Miz.
Well,
No,
who
but
started it?
there's John Cena, whatever. But you get my point. Like it's John Cena making a mockery in a way of the streak of WrestleMania. Even though John Cena's trying to be like, oh, I'm just gonna be a fan since I didn't get my wish, and then Vince throws him a bone like, God, just give him this match, just for him. I think.
Yeah, these two had horrendous build-ups to their matches. They left Cena, from what I read, they left Cena off the card because they weren't 100% sure Taker was even going to be able to go. And then he was, and so then they did that stupid angle where he comes out right after the Divas match, I think.
Yeah. After
That pissed me off.
A referee runs down.
Charlotte breaks the streak. We're talking about a streak here, but Charlotte breaks the streak.
We'll make an episode for that. But do you see why we're in agreement with these two
Well,
opponents?
Dan, is that your exact two?
Yeah, those were mine.
You guys agree on 3 worst opponents. I kind of went a little pre-post. So I'm going to go post-streak. My favorite opponent was Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 31. This is 2015. And the reason why I say this is because even though Bray might have been a bit injured and, you know, Cena had already, you know, kind of buried him at previous year's WrestleMania, I felt like this was The Undertaker's comeback. It was, the streak has been broken. Can The Undertaker come back? And can he have that one more match? Is he broken? Can he go anymore? And JBL made a comment after the match where after Undertaker won, he said, the gunslinger is back in town. And I felt like that fits so perfectly because The Undertaker, even though that was the most depressing moment out of his career, he was still able to come back and be The Undertaker again. So...
I can agree with that. I can agree because you do see everything that you've ever admired about Undertaker during WrestleMania come back, which is a good thing. I think so.
And you, Dan?
Yeah, no, this one is a close second to the one that I chose, and I only chose this one because his opponent was in full health. Like that's the only reason Bray didn't make mine.
Yeah. And worst opponent, we've talked about this, Roman Reigns, WrestleMania 33. This is in 2017. And it's not just because it was Roman Reigns, it was because I felt like he didn't need that match. I felt like it wasn't necessary. And the fact that you build it as The Undertaker is gone, he's retired, and Roman comes out and says, this is my yard. He's obviously stealing something that The Undertaker used, 17 years back. I didn't like the match. I still haven't seen it. I have been notorious for going back and rewatching these matches, but I have not rewatched this match since it happened.
So you've only seen it once and just
one time. Yeah.
And I mean, with this one, you're trying to get us to like the guy.
Not doing a good job.
Nope,
Yeah.
not at all.
Like his egomania against a beloved character in The Undertaker makes you go, no, go to hell, Roman.
You go to hell and you die.
Oh, wow, okay.
Not really. We don't want you to die, Joe.
We don't wish death upon you.
We hope the gimmick dies.
But why are you beating The Undertaker?
Seriously.
Okay, and I got 2 questions here for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
When do you guys think the streak will officially stop just being a thing at Mania, and who your dream opponent is at WrestleMania?
What's our count right now? 20...
We are at 24 and 2.
24 and 2. I think they're gonna try and stretch to 30.
Okay.
Just because
So
we're
you're saying
Oh, wait.
No,
For a second,
I
got
mean 30
confused.
total.
I thought you meant
Like 30
WrestleMania
matches.
30. I'm like, what?
He finishes with 30 matches
30
overall.
matches.
Yeah, that's what I think they're gonna try and stretch to. Obviously, that depends on his health.
Are we
'cause
counting the 2 losses, or is it like
Yeah.
30 wins and like
I think
2
they're gonna go
losses?
for 4 more.
Like where it ends in like 28 and 2.
Yeah.
But it's overall 30 matches.
Yeah.
Because then that's a nice squared off number. That's where I think it's ultimately going to end. For me, I wrote down I'd like to see Seth and
Yes.
Undertaker.
That'd be nice.
But I would be torn in that. I would be torn so bad because Seth right now is my guy.
Yeah.
But The Undertaker is my WrestleMania guy. So
The thing I think about this match though is I think this one WWE would find a way to build the way they should have built the Reigns match.
the Seth match.
Yeah. Because I think they'll play it to where we aren't taking Seth, the guy that people have a current respect and affection for, and like doing this egomania thing. Like he's good, we know he's good. He might even play that angle, but I don't think he's gonna shit on the Undertaker's legacy the way that they tried to have Roman do.
Yeah.
I think the streak should end with one more match. It's an odd number to end at 27 matches. The man has given us enough, personally. Like, don't get me wrong. I love The Undertaker. I will always consider him in my top, 5 wrestlers, maybe even top 3 overall, no matter what. But time is the greatest opponent ever.
Undertaker versus Time at WrestleMania 35.
The special referee god.
Yep. With Shawn Michaels as the timekeeper and Triple H as the ring announcer. But I think there should be one more match, personally to me. If they do what Dan said, they stretch it to 30 matches. Obviously, every year you just give Undertaker his one match. and you let him train and regroup the rest of the year, no matter what. Dream match. It's no one current. It's two wrestlers that one will not come back. Two that people are on the fence about coming back.
I think I know, but go ahead.
So, one that people are on the fence about is CM Punk. Let's have another CM Punk Undertaker
Really?
match.
Okay.
One, that's the best way to bring back someone who fans want back in the WWE. Two, he was still one of the Undertaker's greatest opponents. He's the one opponent that got the Undertaker to 21-0. Even if he loses, you'd still would identify that CM Punk is the man.
Homeboy's got to be into it, though. Like,
Exactly.
If he comes back, I don't want this half-assed CM Punk match.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you have him win though?
No,
No.
I'd have him lose.
Nobody else should beat the Undertaker.
No. And this is the match that I've always wanted, but it never happened. It was never a story that they could cross. They could never get this guy into the WWE, even at his prime.
I got it figured out already.
Sting versus The Undertaker.
Yep.
Damn it, Seth. I love you, man, but damn
Why?
it, Seth. Why are you turnbuckle powerbombing 49-year-old men? I don't know.
Here's
I don't
the
know how
thing.
old Sting is. Sorry.
I saw a YouTube comment where someone said Seth is very dangerous to work with because he broke Cena's nose, he hurt Sting,
Finn. He
Finn.
dislocated Finn's shoulder.
but here's the thing: Seth has done that buckle bomb over 500 times.
Yeah, a lot of times.
And it's like Owen Hart. He pile drove Austin. Austin broke his neck. Tombstone pile drivers have been done thousands of times. So I don't think you can really blame Seth in that regard because sometimes, and especially Seth is a very much high flyer, jump from one side to the other. So
The F5 has had people thrown on their heads before, and we've still seen that 16 times in a match.
Yeah.
So
The thing is, okay, to add to Dan's dream match, Seth versus The Undertaker, if that were to happen, Dan wants 4 more matches. You make that the last Undertaker streak match. If you make him win, cool. If you make him lose, the only way it works is that Seth hurt The Undertaker during the match. Because honestly, like you said, Seth is a dangerous wrestler to work with. And it's not that Seth is purposely trying to hurt you, it's just
it's
he
just
goes...
nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Not
But-
Brock Lesnar.
My thing was Sting versus The Undertaker. Like, if you could, like... Obviously, this is a dream match. If you could take a time machine and bring Sting in, like, at the prime of his Crow days, before he went to Impact and just really botched his character completely. But you take that quiet, free agent
Crow
Sting, and you put him against The Undertaker. Whether... And obviously, this is a dream match.
So you think it's not going to happen?
It'll never happen.
Sting says
Because what I want is two wrestlers that are in their primes wrestling.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, if it's a dream match of reality, it can still happen, but it wouldn't be the same impact.
Would you have been happy with that WrestleMania 31 Sting versus Taker?
Yeah, I think I would have, because Sting was coming up in the WWE finally. This is a wrestler I've always wanted in there, but Vince could never find a way to get him in.
But if he lost, would you have a problem with that? If
Sting lost? No, I would not, because honestly, my dream came true.
they put on a hell of a match because
Exactly.
they're both hard workers.
Yeah. And Sting has always had a reputation where he doesn't wrestle to just anybody and it's like a shit show. It has to be-
Victory Road, Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
You can see the WWE 24 documentary where they talk about that in depth only on the WWE Network for a non-negotiable but very reasonable price of $9.99 a month.
But yeah, that would be my other one.
My dream opponent, it's so funny because you two basically kind of made me think. Seth and Undertaker, I'm a big fan of that because Seth's my guy right now. Sting has that's been the match that everybody has been wanting to see right next to Hogan and Austin. Like when you talk about dream matches, I feel like everyone is always putting those two together. I just thought about it right now. I don't know. I mean, let me know what you guys think. But Undertaker, first of all, I think that the streak will stop being a thing anytime from now until WrestleMania 40.
Oh wow.
Whether that's before WrestleMania 40 or at WrestleMania 40, if they go past that, then God bless you, Taker. Dream opponent, I would love to see Undertaker versus Daniel Bryan at a WrestleMania.
That's a pretty weird match.
You think about it for a second. You got the high flyer, the guy who just will kick your head off, the GOAT who just, everyone said, you know, he won't make it. And at WrestleMania 30, put on one hell of a performance, defeating 3/4 of Evolution in one night, building himself the same night that the Undertaker got his streak broken.
Okay, I can see that.
And I think these two can have a phenomenal match, a great match.
Because for a big guy, Undertaker's pretty technical.
And for a small guy, Daniel Bryan is, the guy's got speed, he's got the moves, and he can get you all pumped up and excited. He can.
Yes.
Any,
Obviously, I'm not as excited.
any last minute comments before we wrap up our conversation about the streak? Because we've talked about a lot. We've covered this from every angle that we've thought possible. The streak right now sits at 24-2.
This is something, whether he lost or not, will always be a part of WWE history, no matter what. And you cannot take this away from him ever. This is his one thing he has. Just like how Shawn has, like, his WrestleMania moment, you know, his boyhood dream of becoming a champion. That's the Undertaker, just being the man, being the WrestleMania guy, no matter what.
I would say that really, if you want to kind of tie this up with a nice neat bow.
Dallas?
What?
Because you said Bo.
Jesus. I would say if you want to tie this up with a nice neat bow, what you could do is you could bring back Brock, and you could do the rubber match thing where Undertaker gets his revenge, and then that's your last match.
Tombstone to hell.
And you just you make it so that that's Brock Lesnar, maybe Brock Lesnar's last match too, and you just send both of them off
Into the sunset.
into the sunset.
I truly believe that the 34 would have been the Mania to do that in New Orleans. I mean, come on. The colors are there. The theme song by Kid Rock is there. You know, everyone.
Ugh.
Hey, he's fine. I like him. But I said it like a year and a half prior that we know that they're going into WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, and that would have been the ideal idea is to book that rubber match, and it would have been so fitting. The place that the streak was broken is the one place that Undertaker kind of revived that loss.
Yeah, the only issue with that for me is the fact that they had other plans for Brock still, and they weren't ready. They were not willing to throw those to the wind for the Undertaker.
So Roman over Taker, basically.
Yep.
The world we live in. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up our conversation about the streak. We got to talk about favorite opponents, worst opponents, good manias, bad manias, good moments, bad moments. But let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Once again, I want to thank you guys. This was an episode that I was really looking forward to because I know that the commission, myself, and also Dan the Man and myself have kind of gone back and forth a couple times, but today we were able to get it all out in the open and just kind of let each other know where we stand and why we stand where we stand. So once again, guys, thank you so much for coming along. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone, and we will see you all next time.